The Mini Cooper has always been the quirky option if you wanted a compact car, and there's no difference when it comes to the hatchbacks. Let's go for a drive and get to know it a little better. The first thing you'll notice when you get into this car, which is different from others, is a lot of these rounded shapes. So you have the main infotainment system here in the middle, you have the speedometer and the tachometer. And overall, Minis are just these sort of quirky cars. Some of it is pretty fun and cool, such as the engine on and off button. But other things can be a little bit too much, such as the fake vents on the hood. And, well, to be honest, that's the only thing I can think of right now. Overall, I think these are great cars, but let's get more into the details. Now, this is a 2017 Mini Cooper S. The infotainment system might seem a little bit outdated, which it is, but these cars do come with Apple CarPlay, not this particular model, but they do come with Apple CarPlay. They come with a backup camera and many other features like backup sensors. However, I don't think it's really necessary. Like, these are obviously nice features to have, but in such a small car where I can almost reach the end of the car, you know, it's pretty easy to back this thing up and not hit anything. It's a tiny car. Cabin is really nice. Now, this is not the base model. This is one of the more upgraded ones. So you can expect nice leather seats. The interior, overall, I find it very hard to get dirty. And what I mean by that is, this is my own personal car, and I've had it for more than a year, and I've really only cleaned up the inside twice. And that's coming from somebody who likes to have a very clean car. It really just doesn't get dirty on the inside. It doesn't really accumulate any dust. Let's check out the back seat. Now, this is what I would refer to as a true hatchback. You only have the two front doors and then obviously the trunk. Now, I'm 6'1", and the driver's seat is currently set to my liking. And you can see over here on the left, there's not much room left. But here on the right, where there is decent room for a passenger in the front, and you put the seat back, I do have to move my legs a little bit out the way. But I sit just all right back here. It's not too bad. One thing that I really like about this car is the fact that it has two sunroofs. Brings in a ton of natural light. Now, here in the passenger seat, I sit just fine here with spare room for my knees. Now, something that ties nicely into that sporty feel are the frameless doors. I always feel like that gives a nice sporty feel to a car. Let's take a quick look at the trunk and get on our way. You can't really expect much more from a car this size. I have fit a couple of suitcases in here, but that's really about it. I've also fit a bike in here, obviously with the seats down, which gives you some extra room, but this is not really your typical moving car. Now, it will move all right under its own power, but you don't want to haul a bed in this one. Nice little air intakes here at the bottom. But the one fake one I mentioned is this one here on the hood. Now, this model is the 2017, and given it's the Cooper S, now you have the standard Cooper, has a turbo 3-cylinder. You have the Cooper S, which is a 4-cylinder turbo, and you have the JCW, or the John Cooper Works, which is also a 4-cylinder turbo. Minis are made by BMW, so you're going to have a lot of BMW parts in cars like these, which is good and bad. Obviously, that makes your maintenance and repair costs a little bit higher, but it also makes it quite reliable, especially in these newer models. Now, the generation that we're sat in right now started at around 2014. Now, the engine in this car is the one called the B48. So it's also the same 4-cylinder you'll find in many BMWs, just set up it slightly differently. So it doesn't quite make as much power as B48 will in a BMW, but still plenty for this little car. If you are in the US, the engine will be the B46, which is really just to comply with emission laws over there. Now we'll go out on some curvy roads in just a minute and really get into what this car is all about. But right now, when we're just, in a small neighborhood, somewhat bumpy roads, it's not the most comfortable car you will get into. Sitting in traffic, the gearing is not the best. It never really knows if it should stay in first gear, go to second gear. So what ends up happening is that it will just kind of jump between those two gears, and it becomes quite clunky, and you sit and rock back and forward quite a bit. Now, when you're not in traffic, this car is just a blast. The gearing is sharp, especially when you put it in sport mode and you can move the gear selector over, and it not only will be in sport mode, but moving the gear selector over, now the gears are also more sporty. It will downshift a little bit earlier. The shifts are a little bit more harsh. But that's what you want when you put a car in sport mode. Now I'll go ahead and put it back in just normal mode here. Another little quirky thing, let's motor, mid motor. When you put it in green mode, it'll just tell you let's minimalize green mode. And when you put it over in sport, it says let's motor hard, sport mode. Now in these different modes, you can further configure how you want it to be. So in sport mode, you can say, do you want it to be drivetrain and chassis that gets sporty, so it stiffens up and it becomes more responsive, or you can pick just one or the other, drivetrain or chassis. Now I really enjoy both of them being enabled when I go into sport mode, because I do love that go-kart feel, which we'll really get into in just a moment when we get onto this twisty area. Now it does have a adaptive suspension, which you definitely feel tightening up once you put it in sport mode. The steering becomes a little bit heavier. The steering is pretty heavy to begin with, and when you put it into sport mode, it just gets a little bit heavier again. All right, we got all this sporty dashes pulled up on the screen here. Horsepower. This car does have 189 horsepower. It has about 207 foot-pounds of torque. Now the horsepower is not the greatest in the world. The top end power is disappearing a little bit, especially when you're on the highway or when you're doing some hard acceleration. But when it really comes to life is when you feel that torque. So we just got to this curvy road here, and the torque is really noticeable. You have that lower end grunt of the engine. We're really only doing 3,500, 4,000 RPM here, but it's really moving. You can see I really only put the pedal down 50% and we got up to 110 fairly quickly while doing these curvy roads. Now it is a front wheel driven car, so if you're going hard in a turn, you'll notice a little bit of understeering, but that is to be expected. This car is equipped with all-season Continental Extreme Contact. Which are pretty good for the summer season as well. Given that these tires are all-season, you can expect a little bit more road noise, but I really don't find it too bad inside the cabin of this car. Again, here, just a torque. I'm barely touching the pedal in sport mode, and it's really just moving, pushing me back in the seat. Let's switch it back into normal. Softens the suspension a little bit as we finish the last little bit of this curvy road, which is a little bit more bumpy. Overall, it's a very quiet car on the inside. You do get some of that grunt and the low rumble of the engine. But all the noise that you don't really care about, like the road noise, are not very present. Not bad at all. Even when doing 130 on the highway, it's not too bad. Something else I really enjoy about this car is the visibility from inside. No matter where you look, I feel like you have such a great view of what's going on around you. I find in many cars the A-pillar blocks quite a bit of your view, but not at all in this car. Also, given that this is a 3-door car, typically your doors are a little bit longer than in a sedan or anything like that, just to allow for passengers to get in the back. But what that does is when I look over my shoulder, I'm not looking straight into the B-pillar. I'm actually looking out the window and I have a good amount of view. Also, as I mentioned earlier, the 2 sunroofs. I have the front one closed right now just because there's some middle of the day sun coming in. But for the most part, I have them opened up. I love when a cabin is just nicely lit and a lot of natural light coming in. It has a decent amount of cup holders for a car like this. Has 2 here in the front, has one just behind my right elbow, and then for the rear passengers they have 1 each. So a total of 5 cup holders in such a small car. Not bad at all. Now when you put it in cruise control and you just want to go for a relaxed drive, the fuel economy is decent. It's such a small car, but it's not the most aerodynamic car. The windshield is pretty straight up. When I recently did about 100-kilometer drive, where 90% of it was on the highway, I did about 120 kilometers per hour and used cruise control most of the time. When I got back home, my consumption was at about 17 kilometers per liter. Now I'll put up on the screen what that's equivalent to in miles per gallon and other ways of measuring it. But I find that that's not great. It is only a 2-liter engine, turbocharged, and a lightweight car. So I don't find that that's great for the fuel economy compared to other smaller cars. You don't buy this car for the great fuel economy. You drive it because it's a fun little go-karty type car. It's fun in the winding roads. It's nimble and easy to maneuver around in the city, and it's sporty. You don't ever hear anybody buying a supposedly sporty car expecting it to be great on fuel. The lifetime of this car, it has about 82,000 kilometers, and I can see the lifetime fuel consumption is around 13 kilometers per liter. Now when you do decide to put it in cruise control, you might as well swap it over to the green mode. Now this enables a few different settings. Again, here, like for sport mode, for green mode, you can configure it. And the last one here is coasting. Now what that does is when you let go of the gas pedal, instead of engine braking like a car normally would, it actually just coasts and it goes into neutral. So you kind of just glide instead of losing speed. So right now we're doing 67. There's a red light ahead. I let go, but I'm still kind of going 67, 66 until I hit the brake pedal. And obviously if you don't disable it, it's gonna cut the engine when you're stopped at a red light, which gives us a moment to look at some of all the toggles and switches. Obviously, the main attention grabber is the start-stop button here for the engine. I love how it looks and how tactile it feels. Same goes for some of these other, you have the engine on-off auto button, you have the traction control button. Overall, the buttons and knobs are just nice and tactile and very functional. I remember in some of the older Minis, you even had the switch for your window, which are probably these blank ones here. You had those switches for your windows, rolling them up and down, which felt pretty cool, moving that toggle. Now it's just over here. Now, this car did not come with the upgraded stereo. There was an option to get Bose speakers in here. And normally I would personally upgrade for the better stereo. But in this car, I actually don't mind it at all. You just turn up the bass a little further in the setting, and it plays quite nicely. Again, up here at the top, you have more of the toggles. Here's for the sunroof. Tilt it open a little bit, pull it once more, and you open it fully. One of the things you want to look out for when considering getting this car, the first thing is the left engine mount. I found after doing some research that that's a typical thing that can break on these cars. Now, it doesn't help that where this car drives a lot is on bumpy roads. But otherwise, if you have a 2015 or newer, there are really few things to look out for. If you just stay on top of your maintenance and treat it well, there's really not much that can go wrong. This is from the generation of the more reliable BMW engines. And given that this is a detuned BMW engine, they're going to be able to be put through a lot before anything is going to happen. Now, while I mentioned earlier that it's not a very comfortable car, that's actually not entirely true. The seats are quite comfortable. They hug you very nicely. But it's really just when you get on those bumpy roads that it's very, well, bumpy. But otherwise, it is a comfortable car and sporty at the same time when you want it to be. It's just you do have to deal with those bumpy roads and potholes once in a while. Now, that was the pedal all the way at 100%. So you can see at the top end, it moves, but just not the same feeling as at the lower end. We'll exit the highway here again and finish off on some curvy roads. Really where this car shines. As per usual, we'll put it back in normal mode, just for that little extra comfort. All right, let's finish up on these curvy roads that are very fittingly called Snake Road. Now, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe for more, leave a like, maybe leave a comment, let me know what you think. And there'll be way more reviews like this one. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for watching.